On another exciting episode of the Animation Deliberation podcast, I say exciting, but man, did this episode bring me even more tears. Oh, we're in despair. This is My Hero Academia, season 6. We're going to talk about that and much more right after these ads we have no control over.
Sing along if you know the words. A 1, 2, 3, it's time for Animation Deliberation. A conversation and a celebration of our favorite action animated series. Yeah!
Yeah! Welcome back to another episode of Animation Deliberation, the podcast where we take action animation and cartoons seriously and not too seriously. We are your hosts. I am Zuhair and J
My name's J Scotty St. Clair.
And we got news to talk about for all the people who are hopping over from our Bad Batch episode. As promised, we are covering the news right off the top to talk to you. And the biggest thing that kind of hit us yesterday at the time of recording this is that Harley Quinn is going to be having a Valentine's Day special, February 9th, HBO Max. It is very rated R. Do not show it to your kids. But the trailer is hilarious and we are very excited for it.
Yeah, I think James Gunn was obligated to keep this one in the DC slate because of his appearance on the previous season. But yeah, definitely excited to have more from the irreverent and raucous world of Harley Quinn.
It does bring my heart joy that James Gunn has canned so much stuff, but he's showing so much love to the animated stuff. Like he's been on Harley Quinn and then talking about how Young Justice is going to be like foundational for how they pick up the DCU. I was like, oh my God, you're my hero.
Yeah. Pretty soon we're going to be saying in James Gunn we trust.
Yeah. I have no reason to believe otherwise.
Also in the world of superheroes, it doesn't tie into DC or Marvel per se, but one of my favorite superhero properties from the last few years, Invincible Season 2, we got a teaser trailer, a really meta and funny teaser trailer that confirms the late 2023 release window. Is 2023 like soon in your time? It sounds like it's really soon by the way you're saying it.
That was a great closer to that. Yeah, check out that little thing. There's nothing spoilery in it. There's nothing even from the show itself. It's just a great tease of just trying to give us an update. The fact that they're like giving love to their creators and stuff. Like, how long does it take you to draw that? That was major props to you for this show, because this was one of the ones where it's like I didn't care for it because it was another superhero thing, but you were talking about the cast and how much you wanted to talk about it, and we watched it, and I was like, that the fact that they actually put, like, the fact that we saw what we saw in that first episode, oh my God. Yeah. We definitely have podcast for every episode. If you guys are in the mood for a rewatch and want to listen with us, or if you're new to the show, thank you for listening. We do have Invincible episodes. Check that out. Time permitting, we might do a rewatch and just quick thoughts, but
totally wouldn't be opposed to that.
We are excited. There's no doubt about that.
Last thing I'll say about the trailer is I really want a mashup of this trailer with the SpongeBob episode where the food critic says, "Pretty good, but you forgot the pickles." If you know, you know. That's all I'll say.
The pickles. Almost ended the man's career.
All right.
This isn't really news, but we just kind of had this wild realization the other day that the Demon Slayer theater release is the same day as Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
So that will be a very anime-filled day.
Yeah. If there was ever a day to do a double feature, that's your day. And what day is that again? Do we know?
March 3rd.
March 3rd, 3/3/2023. Mark your calendars.
And also in the world of movies, while we're talking about it, we have the 95th Academy Award nominees announced. Do you want to tell who we got for the best animated features?
Sounds good. We had Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio nominated. Marcel the Shell with Shoes On was nominated, which I'd put like a little asterisk next to that one. Technically, it is animated with stop motion, but there are definitely some live action performers involved with that one. A definite favorite from the end of the year last year, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. The Sea Beast from Netflix, and my favorite animated film from last year, Turning Red.
I feel like a disgrace to the podcast in the sense that I haven't seen any of those.
Oh, The only one I have not seen, the Sea Beast or Pinocchio, both Netflix properties. So,
Whoops.
yeah. Marcel the Shell with Shoes On was actually like adapted from a YouTube series, and it was done by A24. And like by and large, I see pretty much everything A24 puts out. 2022 was a very big year for them, so there were a couple that fell through the cracks, but definitely worth a watch. It'll definitely warm your heart if you're in the mood for a emotional pick me up. I would recommend that one. Jenny Slate doing hilarious voice work.
Nice, good to know. I'll add it to the never-ending list.
Yep. Cue the Cap from Winter Soldier, where he just pulls out the list and exactly.
I have like a stack of those journals, so I just finish that up and just add it to the pile.
Yes.
All right, I think that's it for our news. So if you guys have any reactions to anything or anything that we forgot, because we are three human beings, feel free to send us an email, animationdeliberation@gmail.com, animationdeliberate1 on Twitter, and animation deliberation on Instagram. Moving on to our feedback. Yeah, email from TJ Stafford.
Cool.
Hello, friends. This latest episode has me thinking about the world of My Hero Academia in a much broader sense. When the show started, we came in at the height of heroic society. Their popularity was at an all-time high, and public opinion was extremely supportive. The positive support held strong for the first couple of seasons. The first crack in the dam, Stain and his ideology beginning to influence the villains and even seep into the public. But the first major blow was All Might's retirement. Oh man, do I have something to say about that?
Okay.
That is when the public first began to show doubts about the continuing success of the heroes. From there, we watched as the confrontations with Overhaul and the Paranormal Liberation Front further damaged the heroes' reputations. Now public opinion is at an all-time low, with the large amount of heroes getting out of the game. So where do we go from here? Based on what we've seen in the last couple of episodes, I don't think we're going to get any better for our heroes right away. All the references to hell in the episode title seem to be pointing in that direction, but I do think we're going to eventually see a comeback. After sinking so far, I think the heroes will rally and even achieve new levels of success. If things eventually improve, I suspect it'll be the new generations of heroes stepping up to the plate that could potentially turn the page of this dark time. If that happens, it's going to be a pretty powerful story, and I can't wait to see it. What do you guys think? I like this emotional recap that TJ gave us, because it really isn't. It's something I've been thinking about, but the way that he put it into words was just like an interesting perspective of just kind of like how the dominoes have been falling. And it's something that All for One loves to see.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of like his retrospective approach, kind of like looking at all the little things that some big things that added up to get us to where we're at now. And I'm reminded of a quote from a very popular superhero property. You either live long enough to see yourself you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And that kind of feels like what we're seeing here. The heroes are being demonized. And I think it's a very timely and apt conversation for the show to be having. It's kind of interesting that these events took place in the anime, or the manga rather, and they're being adapted now for the anime. But there's this conversation, with our superhero properties that we love, and there's been this like kind of like conversation going on in the background about like superhero fatigue, like, Marvel Phase 4. Like, I'm not one of the people, like, I still am enjoying the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but there's definitely more naysayers, and with the shakeups at DC, like, people are losing confidence in these superhero properties. So it's just, I find it very interesting that that's what's happening in the world of My Hero Academia as well. It's kind of like this magnifying glass on our real world in this.
You made it very meta.
Yeah. Thanks to TJ's help. He helped me take it there.
I mean, hey, we can make that even wider in the sense of like the way that social media has just kind of like skewed things nowadays. It's like anytime there's something that you look forward to or look up to, there's just a million things that just kind of like try to find a way to tear it down. It's like he said this at one point, or he did this one minor action 30 years ago that's going to hold him down for the rest of his life now. And it's very easy to just kind of like paint over whatever good anybody does. The scene from a few seasons ago with Endeavor being cheered on was
Mm-hmm.
so powerful when we saw it, and then just like to see even like that level crumble to what it is right now. It's really sad. Is there any other part of it that you want to talk about that doesn't pertain to this episode, or should we just kind of go on and finish the conversation?
No, I find myself kind of having to like catch myself, be like, okay, don't spoil the episode we're about to talk
Yeah.
about. But it is just
Okay.
very timely, and I like some of the things you brought up in terms of like, I don't know if cancel culture is quite the right terminology for it, but I'm starting to see those parallels in what we're seeing
Hmm.
in this show as well. So let's go ahead and knock out the synopsis so we can just
I do have to ask, do you
sure.
know what this arc is called?
Ooh, I at this point in time I don't. So the last one was like the Paraliberation War.
Okay.
Uh, I don't know what this one is called, but I'd be interested to learn.
Do you want to know?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Listeners, if you don't want to know what it's called, hit that skip 30 button now. It is
Mm-hmm.
called the Dark Deku arc.
Ooh.
And they like promoted it as that. So it's like I follow My Hero's stuff because I watch it the day it comes out, so it's not spoilery for me, and they're really good about how they put up images and what they say.
Mm.
But they talk about how excited they are for the Dark Deku arc and
Mm.
the way that that opener is, and the way that he's dressed, and the way that his clothes are beat to hell, and all that makes me wonder like what kind of twist we're really getting for this character, especially because he's in his coma and everything.
Mm.
I've been trying not to say it, so it's like I don't know if you and Andrew knew. I still don't know if Andrew knows, but like when I first saw that, I was like, things are about to get eerie.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't think that's too much of a spoiler. That is, I kind of like having that in the background to keep in mind as we see things go forward. But I definitely did pick up on the opener how kind of tattered his clothing looks, and he's always kind of been at the forefront of the openers in terms of like he's center and the rest of class 1A and maybe class 1B kind of surround him as well. But it looks like I mentioned it with Bakugo kind of looking like he's like has more of a begrudging respect for him, but it really seems like he's kind of like emerging as like a leader. And I have to imagine that's like as he becomes more powerful and taps into more of these powers from the vestiges, like he's getting closer and closer to being that number one hero that we know he's going to be. So if he has to go through a dark period to get there, I think it'll be good character growth because he's always been kind of like our infallible, like always doing the right thing kind of character. So
yeah, he's the well-polished protagonist, and pun intended. Sometimes you just need a few stains. All right, let's get on with the synopsis. I got a lot to say.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so My Hero Academia Season 6, Episode 16, titled The Hellish Todoroki Family Part 2. The allusions to hell continue, as TJ pointed out. All right. When he was a child, Hawks, Keigo Takami, lived in a poor and abusive household. His father was a villain who went on the run with his mother after killing someone, inadvertently having a child, who he would treat terribly. Keigo would watch news broadcasts of heroes, but never believed in them beyond fantasy, clinging to his Endeavor doll as his only source of happiness. One day, his father is arrested by Endeavor, reinvigorating hope in the boy that heroes are real. He and his mother are left on the streets as she begs him to use his wings to do something. After Keigo saves some civilians from an incident, they are approached by the Hero Public Safety Commission, recruiting Keigo to be a hero while also cutting ties with the Takami name for them both. In the present, Best Jeanist and Hawks drive through the city, where they explain how they were able to put Best Jeanist into a death-like state to fool Dabi before he was revived. Best Jeanist stops a group of thugs on the street, where he learns the police are too busy rounding up the escaped convicts, and the hero offices nearby have shut down, causing them to notice how much the faith in the heroes has dwindled. They arrive at Hawk's mother's home, where he finds a letter from her explaining how Dabi had sent men to force her into revealing his past, and that she has fled to not cause him any more trouble. Hawk laments on his failure to save his mother, and instead run from his past, and declares his intentions to do what he wants to do now and help Endeavor. Meanwhile, civilians have started to take matters into their own hands using support items to fight villains. But their inexperience only leads to more damage and more decrying for the heroes being late. Endeavor regains consciousness in the hospital, breaking down over Dabi and his past sins coming back to haunt him. Shoto and his siblings awkwardly walk in on him as he tearfully attempts to apologize for his guilt and actions. He is then confronted by Rei regarding his current state, telling him they need to talk about Toya.
Powerful episode, man. Especially that second half.
Yes.
I was on the verge of tears during most of it. I mean, that's just generally what the show does to me. But I was like just sitting there in such a mood. And when the camera panned up behind All Might, I was so scared. I was like, don't show me the front, don't show me the front, don't show me the front. And it turns to the statue and it says, I'm not here. Dude, that got me. That got me. Like, it hurts him enough to be having to watch from a TV. And for him to be, I don't even want to say like because the heroes are doing the wrong thing, but like for him to be plucked in with this perception is even more heartbreaking because he can't do anything right now. It's that one little frame alone hit me in the gut so bad.
Yeah, this definitely felt like one of the more like grounded and darker episodes of My Hero, and that moment in particular with All Might's statue saying I'm not here, really like that moment I had the thought like, oh, this is like the Snyderverse from My Hero Academia. I immediately thought of like the statue of Superman where it said false god.
Yeah.
So it was a heavy episode, and I did feel like it was kind of like split into two halves. We had the revelation of Hawk's past and his kind of present day ongoings with Best Jeanist, and then the back half focusing on Endeavor and the Todoroki family. But I do think the connective tissue there was the fact that Endeavor was a terrible father to his own family and to his own kids, but in a way he was kind of like a father to Hawks. He was like, he saved Hawks from his own terrible dad just by being there. So if I can say anything lighthearted about it, give me a Hawks Best Jeanist buddy cop show. I would totally watch that spinoff. I think they're great. And
as long as it's a spinoff and not a filler.
Yeah, for sure. But with Best Jeanist, because they're both two of my favorite characters, I like them both a lot. But with Best Jeanist, I always like kind of like noticed with his collar that like covers his mouth and whatnot. I'm like, he looks like he has an abnormally long neck, but I was just like, maybe that's just like the collar or whatever. But then you see him in civilian clothes where he's like speaking on the news broadcast, and it's the same thing. It's like, this guy just has a long neck, like no matter what.
It's fashion, Scoots.
The high collar, pop that collar. Yeah.
I love when he came in and like saved everybody, and then he was just like combing his hair. It's like, oh no, it's out of place.
Swick.
Oh, the looks on like how he was picking out who was happy to see him, and they grayed out the ones who were angry.
Sure.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't like it.
Yeah.
The Snyder reference is a great comparison. I really, really like that. It makes you wonder like how much he's been collaborating on this. But that show or that movie did have like an energy that really made you think about the hero perspective a little more. It's just DC not being able to incorporate stuff like that. So I with you mentioning that, I feel like My Hero Academia does take the best of that.
Yeah. I would agree.
What was the laundry hero's name?
Wash.
Yeah, I felt so bad for Wash. I was about to say Herb. I'm actually not sure what it is, so I felt bad for Wash. They just came in. She just wanted to help out. And it's like, where were you? It's like, does it matter? Like, how did you blow this whole community block?
Yeah. Yeah, because when you brought up that part about like Best Jeanist noticing like which civilians were kind of like still encouraged and which ones weren't, they had that flash of that young guy that had his hands like locked into something, and like my first thought was not support item, but that was like surprisingly like real world with like,
gun culture.
Yeah, exactly. Gun control and like even like
Be blunt
overseas.
about it.
Well, like even overseas, like it's like who is really the enemy? Like people are just trying to defend for better or worse, and it's inexperience and emotions that just cause things
Mhm.
to get really bad. So yeah, again, it was a very heavy episode in that sense.
And this show is something that's also talked about. It was very early on, but they've talked about how support items are something that needs to be registered like through Heroes, and there's a process, and there's a reason that Academy students are allowed to have access to it. But there's like black markets for things like this, so
Mm,
that kind of made like what I said feel a lot more real too. Of like, oh man, like it's not support items, but this is definitely a real life thing, no matter what country you're in. It's just the feeling that like you don't want to trust this overarching system anymore, and it's like I'll do it myself, which works for baking instead of takeout, but like
mm,
when it comes to fighting and stuff like that, like there's a system to it.
yeah,
Speaking as a martial artist and everything too, um, like bad form leads to being able to hurt yourself and hurt the people that you were trying to protect,
sure.
whether that be weapons based, whether that be just putting your body on the line.
Mm,
Um, yeah, it's a really sad scenario, and all every time I say this, all the credit to all the writers for how incredible they convey this level of emotion and just get you to think about things. Um, I wasn't even expecting to like relate it to real world stuff when we started recording, but it's
yeah,
just done that well that you just can't not think about it. It's a beautiful show. It's an incredible show. We talked about the way that these battles started so strong. Like there was going to be episodes just referring to the fall off, and
hmm
as much as breaks my heart to watch it, I can't help but just love how well done it's done.
yeah, and just to kind of like bring it back to what we were talking about at the beginning with like TJ's email and tying it into real world events. When I mentioned kind of like cancel culture, I was definitely thinking of Endeavor and how there's this kind of like notion like, yeah, you've done all these great things, but what have you done for me lately? And the thing that's freshest in people's mind are all these sins from the past. And he definitely, needs to atone for those, but it's very personal, a personal thing between he and his family.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that like the whole world is judging him and it just breaks him. And like one of the few moments of levity we got in this episode is when he starts to cry and the siblings all walk in on him and they immediately shut the door.
The way that transition of just his intense scene that was about to get
Yeah.
me, and then it was just Shoto just like in his animated form, and call an anime an animated form is pretty interesting in its own with how detailed
Mm-hmm.
these shows are.
Mm-hmm.
But just that flat 2D drawing, and the door just slams shut. Shoto! I was like, there's the
Yeah.
one thing that set me off, and then it went back to him crying, and I was like, no, this hurts to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. Just this tears streaming down his face onto his hands was a surprisingly touching moment of vulnerability from a character
Mm-hmm.
that's been really anything but that. So,
Because it's a whole thing of like, your dad is supposed to be the tough guy. Like, how many times have you seen your dad cry type of conversation?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And with anime being so heavily based around younger people, we view things from their light. So we view these adults as father figures, even though he
mm-hmm,
very well could be the same age as them.
mm,
Um, so it's kind of like, the anime stuff kind of brings us down to our more childlike instincts, because that's just the nature of it, even though it's not for kids, which is what we always like to say.
well,
So we view it from that perspective, even though we're past that point in our lives.
yeah, I mean, on this show, we've frequently stated that animation is not just for kids, but I think it's a combination of the fact that it's animated, plus most of our protagonists are in this young adult kind of age range, and then just hero culture. Like, even back in the days of like mythology, like regular people looked up to heroes and like put them on this pedestal and like I don't know about you with your parents, but I definitely had a tendency to do that. So it does kind of take you to this more like, I guess, childlike state where you're like looking up to this person that's supposed to be infallible and like embody the best parts of humanity and be a protector. So to see them capable of fault and vulnerability is like such an interesting juxtaposition. Yeah.
Yeah, because like we understand the relationship between him and his kids, but before this incident, the public never saw it that way. They just saw it as a hero that's just kind of like grumpy at times.
Yeah.
And then like as part of society, like you see what these villains are capable of doing. Like, yes, Endeavor has a lot to atone for.
Sure.
But would you rather him say sorry and still be your protector, or do you actually want him to quit? Because what's the solution? You see what you guys are doing by yourselves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, people want blood sometimes, and then when they get it, that's not enough, and they're left without a protector. But I do appreciate how the family didn't like really let him off. Like it was obviously a uncomfortable and like tender moment, but Ray, his wife, like coming onto the scene and being like, "We all felt this way, even more than you did. So you can feel your feelings, but we got to come to terms and make some progress here because our son is still out there."
Yeah. So, and the older brother, I'm sure he's going to have his share of outbursts because he seems to be the most
Natsu,
the most to
I
say.
think his name is.
Is it Natsu? Okay.
I think so. Yeah. But kind of changing gears a little bit, I wanted to ask, like, now that we've seen Hawks back on his feet a little bit and Best Jeanist kind of like talking about how it's only because like the medical technology available that he's even alive. Do you think he's going to get his wings back? Because I was trying to like look, are there even in like little nubs there or anything like that, or is he just like?
I think they're going to grow back. They were just burned to an extent that it's going to take some time.
Okay. I hope so. That's my hope, but not 100% sure.
I mean, he didn't seem too hopeless about it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to come back.
Yeah.
The background stuff was interesting. I do like that he had an Endeavor doll because the All Might one was too expensive for his mom.
I totally thought she was going to steal the doll anyway, so I was surprised.
This one's easier to steal. It doesn't have a security tag on it. Then you'd unlock it at the register. It was just on the floor at Walmart.
Yeah, I would be really interested to see what her quirk is, because those two eyeballs that were just like floating around her were like really unsettling.
I wonder if she can like move them around and see where she's kind of like a survey type.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it can't be anything too impactful because she clearly hasn't done much with her life. So,
yeah, that was a sad story, but it was interesting.
It was
how he took it. I also thought that the mom was going to sell him. She was like, "Yeah, we'll just give both of you guys a life." I was like, "Oh, I thought you were just about to hand her a wad of cash and she was going to disappear."
Yeah, I kind of thought it was going that direction as well, and maybe it kind of did. We don't really have the full story if he ever like had visits with her or whatever, but it kind of seems like they went their separate ways by and large. But
yeah, which he's perfectly fine with.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough to see like that opening sequence. Like this, obviously the stuff with the Todoroki family and the state of like the heroes being decried was really tough, but it was like tough to see that domestic abuse and like Hawks getting kicked just for turning his back to his father. Like, yeah, that was pretty raw, and it's few and far between that the show's really gone to places like that. But
I couldn't get over the fact how much trash was in the house. Like they were just sleeping just on the wood floors, which had to have had splinters.
Here's a little brightener up, I guess, while we're in this mood. But Best Jeanist has a Batmobile that's like suited to him. That's great. I love that.
Suited to him?
Yes.
Yeah, I like that we're seeing these like ropes more. Like he jumped out of the plane with them and now they're built into his car. It's like, all right, that's really cool. Yeah. I also want to see what kind of vehicle Bakugo's going to end up with, because he's just the type that wants a rad car.
One other quick thought. We saw a brief flash of Stain where he got his hands on a sword again. Do
Mm-hmm.
you think, with the public opinion of heroes being what it is, do you think there's a redemption arc in the cards for Stain, or is he just going to go back to his old hero killing ways?
I think, yeah, I think he's gonna go to his hero killing ways,
Okay.
and I feel like there's gonna be. I talked about this in another episode. I feel like there's gonna be a divide between the villain organizations.
Okay.
Like we had Shigaraki's group, and then the Yakuza in Overhaul's group,
Mm-hmm.
but then there was a split between Overhaul and the Yakuza. And
Mm-hmm.
then I mentioned before that it's like, why would Spinner care about All for One
Mm-hmm.
after everything that he saw from him, knowing that Stain is out there?
Right.
And he only followed Shigaraki because Stain lost.
Right.
So there's going to be this. If all these villains are out from all these prisons, was like 6 prisons got breached or something?
7 prisons were broken into, but I think prisoners only escaped from 6, as I recall.
Okay. So if we have this level of a breach and this many villains out there, and there is a manner of organizing, who's to say that Stain's not going to have one group while Shigaraki and All for One have their own? Like the opening of, was it season 4, was literally Overhaul and Shigaraki fighting each other. Like that was the first episode.
Yeah, that's when we lost that one member of the League of Villains whose name I
Mm-hmm.
can't remember, but I know Twice voiced his regret that it was kind of his fault that that member was killed.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I would say a divided villain front is definitely one of the few things the heroes might have going for them going forward. But
Yeah.
that's 2 enemies to face, but at least they're not unified. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna call my shot a little bit too. I feel like Deku might be going into anti-hero realms. I feel like he may get tired of playing things by the book, the way that things played out, and he's just gonna go on his own little tantrum for a bit.
Mm.
I feel like his friends are gonna have to reel him back.
Yeah, it would be, I think, a good opportunity for Bakugo and his relationship to be even further solidified, with Bakugo having typically been kind of the bad boy,
Mm-hmm.
kind of being one of the ones to help bring him back from the brink. I would love it if Ida got a little more time to shine. He's
Yeah.
always been a favorite of mine, but he seems like he's been relegated to the background a little bit. And then, this kind of will they, won't they with Ochako. Iravity.
Ochaka or
Ochaka. Thank you. Ochaka. It might be a nice opportunity for her to voice her. I mean, it's obvious that she cares about him, but maybe she's willing to be a little bit more vulnerable about exactly how much she cares for him and how much she, I guess part of her attraction to him is his
Mm-hmm.
altruism. So,
I call her Uraraka more. That's why I forget what her
okay.
last name is.
Yeah. All
Or
good.
first name, or whichever order it is.
Yeah.
I do like that the hero names are more English words, because it does help us out a lot with how many characters there are.
Yeah, I will say that was one part that stuck out to me, is like when skinny jeans came up, they said skinny jeans in English. It was like all Japanese and it was like skinny
Yeah.
jeans. I was
That
laughed a little
happens
bit.
a lot. It's
Yeah.
really interesting. Like even in my language, Urdu, we joke about like Urglish or Spanglish too, where it's just like,
Mhm.
we use like French words like entrepreneur and fiance. So it's like you think about like in other languages, you just don't have a word for that. Like in Urdu, there's no concept of please.
Oh, wow. That's
But then there's
interesting.
just some other like, yeah, it's just about your tone and like how you word it, right? But there's no like,
Interesting.
can you
Okay.
please do this?
Interesting.
So it's just kind of, you
Interesting.
just have to grab the English words, and like once you really pay attention to the dialogue, it's interesting how much that really pulls out. I'm watching Black Clover right now, and it's the same thing over
Mhm.
there, where it's like the people's names are like Henry and Noel, and like it's all these like very like English Western European names. I'm just like, oh, this is great.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of a good point. I feel like I've kind of said everything I want to say about this episode, unless you have anything else. But typically we do like the little Anna minute at the beginning to talk about like what other stuff we're watching. But with you
The
mentioning
last
Black,
thing, sorry, the
okay,
last thing on My Hero was just when the Doctor was updating Endeavor. I like that
yes.
he was just kind of saying him. It's like, hey, here's the update and everything. By the way, I'm still rooting for you.
Oh, I'm glad you bring that up because his doctor was basically Toad from
Yeah.
Mario. Yeah.
I'm glad he didn't see him just go, ah!
But yeah,
that
no,
gif.
not to take away from the moment you bring up. Yeah, he still
No, that's
has
all I'm
people that are
saying,
rooting for him. But yeah, you bringing up Black Clover, it's worth mentioning that I brought up on the last episode that I had started my binge of Jujutsu Kaisen. I have completed the first season of Jujutsu Kaisen, so that just speaks to the quality of that show that I just kept watching episode after episode and couldn't put it down. Nier Automata version 1.1a also had their third episode, and the show continues to be a very faithful adaptation of the video game, but it is doing a couple of things different. One character in particular was not present in the game and is playing a pretty significant role in the show. But I did, watching it on Crunchyroll, you have the comments that you can see on the sidebar there. And I guess people were saying that due to COVID spiking in Japan, the studio, which I believe is A1 Animation. Yeah, I guess we're going to have a delay until we start to get more episodes. So that's a shame. But yeah.
Screw you, COVID.
Pretty much. Still rearing its ugly head from time to time.
I mean, we met because of it, but still, screw you, COVID.
Yep. So Black Clover is next on the docket for me. I did watch the... Okay.
I said I am getting sucked into Crunchyroll. Like day by day, I feel like I'm just going to sign up for it. But I do want to binge Blue Lock.
Okay.
I do want to binge what was it, Vinland Saga?
Yes.
The Vikings anime.
Mm-hmm.
And then Hunter x Hunter is going to be like the next long thing that I watch.
Oh, Andrew will be pleased.
A lot of people will be.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how many Black Clover fans there were until I posted something on Facebook the other day, because this insane scene happened. It was one of the coldest entrances I've ever seen. It gave me goosebumps, and I just kept rewinding it and watching it over and over until I found out there was a TikTok for it, so then I just kept that going. Yeah. But I posted, and so many people were commenting and texting me like, what scene are you talking about? And like... For all the people who are like, oh, it gets better and this and that, like, I appreciate your excitement, but I don't want to know. I don't need any disclosure. Like, I'm halfway through the show. Clearly, I'm into it. I'm going all the way. It's fine. Just enjoy my excitement and let me move on.
The hype train is already.
I promise.
The hype train is already full steam. No assistance required.
Yeah, right. Don't tell me what I haven't seen yet. Come on, guys.
Yeah. Well, speaking of things you may or may not have seen, did you watch any of the first 3 episodes for the season 2 premiere for Vox Machina on Amazon Prime?
No, I haven't finished season 1 yet.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I did watch the first 3 episodes, so no spoilers, but we talk about this episode being dark. Man, that season 2 opener is dark. Like, they're fully embracing like that R or that mature 17 plus rating, or maybe it's like 16, maybe 14 plus, but whatever. They're fully embracing it. It's like we said it with Harley Quinn, like, don't show it to your kids. This is another one of those shows. Don't show it to your kids, but it is awesome. So
there's so much good content.
Oh yeah. Well, do you have anything else for this episode?
No, another it's just sad, man. Like, I love every episode. It's just sad.
Mm-hmm,
I need something to watch after so it doesn't bum me out.
Yeah. We need a Spy Family to come back.
Right? It was such a great equalizer.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Anything you want to plug?
Just the usual. If you are into the NFL playoffs, I record with 323 with Reed Murphy. That's been it, man. My life is post-surgery medication, sleeping, watching Black Clover, taking a break to watch something else or play Pokemon Scarlet, and then our wonderful podcast. That's about it.
Rinse, lather, repeat. All right. Well, yeah, again, some feedback would be lovely. animationdeliberation.podcast@gmail.com. Be like TJ Stafford and send us some astute analysis, or just chime in with your praise or suggestions or what have you. You can also hit us up on social media. Also, speaking of praise, if you want to give us a review or a rating, that would be very beneficial, increase our visibility. Hey, and also if you've got somebody in your life that loves animation, share the show. Give the gift of animation deliberation. The holidays are over, but it's always an appropriate time to share this show. So.
Always trying to spread the love.
Yes.
It's like there's another podcast I listen to, Commanders Declassified. Every episode, they're like, tell a friend to tell a friend.
Okay, I like that.
Give them credit for it, but...
Yeah, credit where credit is due.
I was like, should I steal that? Now, just promote them too.
Yeah, just co-opt it. It's all good. All right. Well, that'll do it for me. So thanks everybody for listening, and keep tuning in. That's TOONIN.
B+ Ultra, and as always, stay whelmed. Thank you for listening to the Animation Deliberation Podcast, a proud member of the Stranded Panda Network. If you would like to contact us, you can email animationdeliberationpodcast@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter @animationdelib1. For this and other great shows, you can visit strandedpanda.com or join the great community that is the Stranded Panda Chat Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/svchat. Tune in next time, and remember, stay whelmed.